often that turns San Jacinto County red is Barack Obama. If there's anyone in that county who votes Democrat again, they need to be shipped out to another state. Thank you all for being here very much. In the prayer that was given today, there was a comment that was made that was very appropriate. It was a reference to the men and women who have served in the United States military. And it called to mind a presentation that I gave about a month ago, just short of a month ago, when I was talking at the Dallas-Fort Worth National Cemetery on Veterans Day, recognizing the men and women who have served this country. And we were reminded that day that just a few hours later, it would no longer be Veterans Day because November the 11th would turn into November the 12th. But even though the calendar day may change, one thing that should not change is our gratitude for the men and women who have fought for this country. And it is a reminder, that every day is a day when we should thank those men and women. If we could, for just one moment, ask any man or woman here who has ever worn the uniform of the United States military to please stand and let us thank you for your service. Thank you. God bless you. The reality is we would not be the freest nation in this world without you and your fellow members of the United States Armed Forces over the years. There's one thing that you fought for, and this is also something that we realized there at the National Cemetery. I was told that day that at the National Cemetery in Dallas-Fort Worth, they bury 16 veterans each and every day on average. And I was told by the caretaker that he wishes he could reach down and shake the hands of every single man and woman who's buried. But of course you can't, because it's too late. But he said what we can do is we can live lives worthy of the freedoms they fought for. And we do that by living our lives in a way where we fight for the freedom in this nation that God gave to us, that was written down in the Declaration of Independence, that was inscribed in the United States Constitution, and that we continue to fight for right here in Harris County every single day. But we all need to awaken to a reality. And that is that there has been one person and one administration in this country that has done more to trample the United States Constitution and our God-given liberties than anybody else. And that is Barack Obama and his administration. But here's what you need to know that you may not know. And that is Barack Obama is not limiting his reach to Washington, D.C. He is seeking to hijack the great state of Texas. Because in my campaign for governor, I'm not running just against Wendy Davis. I'm running against the entire apparatus of the Obama administration. Barack Obama's national finance director is raising money for Wendy Davis. Barack Obama's national field director, the guy who runs the ground game, is running the effort for Wendy Davis. And as we gather today for lunch, they have their team members working Harris County registering voters. They have about 10,000 volunteers working across the entire state to try to turn Texas blue. Barack Obama's deputy campaign manager is now managing Wendy Davis's campaign. And you see people like George Soros. Have you all ever heard that name? George Soros is providing funding for some of these machine-type operations to help Wendy Davis here in the state of Texas. But we have a message for Barack Obama and his paid operatives, and that is that grassroots Republicans in Texas beat paid operatives every single time. face tougher challenges than that, and we will keep Texas the beacon of liberty and opportunity in this country. As I look around, I see rolls being brought out, food being brought out. I want to remind everyone of something near and dear to my heart, and that is I have a wonderful 16-year-old daughter at home. And having a teenage daughter has taught me the reality that sometimes I talk when I'm not listened to. So as you get your meals, feel free to go ahead and eat your meals as I continue my presentation. But let me tell you this is a homecoming for me, getting to come back to Houston, to a place where I've actually had lunch before back in my days when I worked here. But this is also the place that transformed my life. Because it was in Houston that I came to right after graduating from law school, to take a job just a few blocks away at 1000 Louisiana in downtown Houston. Actually working with Paul Simpson. Sure. Right here, fellow class member, right? Class of '84.
Yeah, you've done okay by yourself.
I learned at the knee of Paul Simpson at the firm of Butler and Benyon. But Paul knows because he saw up front the challenge that I dealt with at the time. It's a challenge you've heard about before. It's the challenge of the accident where the tree fell on me and changed my life forever because of my back being broken. I was fortunate that I was living in Houston, Texas at the time, home of the world-class Houston Medical Center, where some of the best doctors in the entire world were able to operate on me, and they began to piece my life back together as they began to piece my vertebrae back together. They had to fuse several of my vertebrae together and then hold those together by inserting steel rods in my back that will remain in my spine the rest of my life. I tell you that because I know that you all meet here frequently, and countless times you've had politicians get up here and tell you that if you elect them to office, they will have a spine of steel when they have to make the tough decisions. I really do have a steel spine that I use to fight for you and your families every single day. Suzanne, you know probably as much as anyone what I've done to fight for women and for families. I put away child predators. I've tracked down human traffickers. I fought to make schools safer for our kids. I protected women who were trapped by domestic violence. And helping single families, especially single moms, I've collected a record-breaking $27 billion in child support for the kids in the state of Texas, elevating our program to the #1 status in the entire nation. But I've also fought for your freedom. I fought for lower taxes, less government, and smarter regulations. And I've done that through those fights against the Obama administration. We need to, Sophia, update my resume because now I have already sued Barack Obama and his administration 30 times for their violation of the United States Constitution. Now, one of those you mentioned was my lawsuit against Obamacare. And listen, I knew at the time I filed the lawsuit what was coming down the pipe. I knew when I filed that lawsuit, which was the very day the president signed Obamacare into law, that when he looked you in the eye and promised you that if you like your doctor, you will get to keep your doctor, I knew that was a false promise. When he told you that if you like your health care insurance, you will get to keep your health care insurance, I knew that promise was false. And I knew that not only would the cost of health care go up, but the cost of your insurance premiums would go up. And we've seen the devastation wreaked on families already. There was one woman who was 8 months pregnant, on the threshold of giving birth, only to be told that because her insurance was being canceled, she was losing her doctor she was depending upon to deliver her baby. Another woman had stage 4 cancer, working to continue living and working her way through the challenge of a serious cancer situation, only to be told she too was losing her doctor. This law is devastating for Americans. It's going to be horrific for families, and we will continue fighting against the Obamacare law until we ensure that it harms no more Americans in this country. And I've also brought more than a dozen lawsuits against Barack Obama's EPA that is focused on trying to slash the energy-creating jobs we have right here in the state of Texas. And I also filed a lawsuit against Eric Holder himself. Eric Holder is trying to prevent Texas from enforcing our voter ID laws. These young men right here, Stan and Chris, know that voter fraud is real. I've prosecuted people who cast more than one ballot in election. We've had dead people casting votes, live people voting twice, 4 nationals registered to vote illegally. Let me tell you something, voter fraud is real, it must be stopped, and we will take this case against Eric Holder all the way to the United States Supreme Court if we have to prevent cheating and alien voting in the ballot here in Texas. And I've also fought to defend Texas values. That's why when the 10 Commandments monument on the Texas Capitol grounds was challenged, I personally took that case all the way to the United States Supreme Court and argued in defense of that monument, and we won 5-4, and that monument still stands on the Texas Capitol grounds today. And that's why when someone challenged students from reciting the Pledge of Allegiance like we did today, with no commas, with the phrase, "One nation under God," I stood in their defense, going to the United States Supreme Court. We won, and the Pledge of Allegiance with the phrase, "One nation under God," is still recited by school children today. When it comes to fighting for you, for your freedoms and your future, I just want you to know that I will never stop fighting. And that's why I'm asking the people of the state of Texas to elect me as your next governor. Yeah. Let me tell you what I want to focus on as governor. One thing I'll focus on is I will continue to keep Texas the national leader in job creation. Doesn't matter how you look at it, Texas has been the leading job creation state in the entire country for the past 5 years, the past 10 years, or going back to the very beginning of this particular century that we're living in right now. Look at the numbers. Texas has been the leading exporting state for 11 years in a row. We've been ranked the top state for doing business 9 years in a row. Forbes came out with a study 2 months ago showing the top 10 cities in the United States of America for job creation for the next decade. 7 of those top 10 cities were right here in the state of Texas, with Houston being one of them. They also came out with a study showing the top 10 hardest working cities in America. 5 of those top 10 hardest working cities in America were here in Texas, with Houston being one of them. The truth of the matter is, Texas is exceptional, and I, as your governor, will keep it that way. Well, I know we also need to address the needs of our growing population here. Because of all the jobs that are coming to the state of Texas, the state is growing by a rate of about 1,400 people a day. You can't add that many cars to the road or straws tapping into our water system without suffering serious consequences if you do not address them. So we will address our transportation needs by adding billions more dollars without raising a single penny from taxpayers. One of the problems that we have in Austin, Texas is the way that the budget is written in ways that divert money from one hand to another. As we speak, there's more than $1 billion of money that was intended to go towards building roads that's being diverted for other purposes altogether. When I am governor, I will stop that diversion of money intended for roads, and we will spend that money on roads to help you get around Houston and Texas a whole lot better. But of all these, I want you to know I'm going to be a champion for doing what the federal government has failed to do. And that is to secure our border from the drug cartels and criminal elements that are crossing the border. You know, our priorities are wrong in this state. When we prohibit and stop a valedictorian from mentioning God in a graduation speech, but do not stop the drug cartels from streaming across the border, coming into Harris County and threatening school children right here, I will put a stop to that practice. But the Texas of tomorrow, more than anything else, has to ensure a better pathway to a better education. My lovely wife, to whom I've been married for 32 years now, is a former teacher and principal right here in Houston, Texas. We've seen firsthand the way that education can transform lives in ways that children are able to go on and achieve things their parents could not even dream of. We will implement the changes to our education system that will advance the next generation. One, we will get government off the backs of teachers. I trust teachers. We just need to get government off their backs and allow them to educate the children in their classroom. That includes building upon what the legislature did in the last session in HB 5 of ensuring that in the classroom students will not be forced to be taught to so many tests and be allowed to truly learn the subjects they are being taught by their teachers. But it also means doing more to cultivate great teachers and great principals. It means getting away from a cookie-cutter approach of educating children. You know, in one family alone, you could have 2 or 3 or 4 children, none of whom learn the same way. When you have 2, 3, or 4 million kids in this state, you're going to have multiple pathways that children naturally will take. We need to be prepared for those multiple pathways, including ensuring that we're going to be training hundreds of thousands of these children to graduate from high school and go on into the many high-paying career jobs right here in the Houston area by allowing them that option. And as your governor, I want you to know that I will drive a stake through the heart of Cisco. And I will never allow Common Core to come to the state of Texas. Well, let me just close by telling you this. As I travel around the state, it seems like every single day I benefit from a story that I learned from one of our fellow Texans. Let me share just one with you that informs me a lot about who we are as Texans and, frankly, how superior we are to people in any other state. It's a story about Jay Adair. Jay Adair is the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar international business named Coparts. Jay is like a growing number of Texans He's a former Californian. He came to Texas 1 year ago. And I asked him why. Most of his explanation is what you would expect. He said the taxes in California were simply way too high and he couldn't afford to pay them anymore and stay in business. He said the regulatory regime in California was strangling his ability to grow the business any further. And he said the unions in California had hijacked not only the public sector but also the private sector, basically running his business out of the state. So Jay asked his chief financial officer to scour the entire country and find the best state for him to relocate his business to. And it came down to 3 states. One was Florida, another was Tennessee, and the third was Texas. Well, after running all the numbers of those final 3 contestants, they realized that mathematically the best state to locate to was the great state of Texas. So Jay loaded up his entire business and moved hundreds of employees from California to Texas, promising me that they really all were conservatives. But also, once he got to the Dallas-Fort Worth area where he's located, hiring hundreds more of employees in the DFW region, adding to the tremendous job growth that we have here. But Jay told me the most amazing thing about this is what he's experienced in the year since he has been here. Because before he moved here, Jay had lived his entire life in California, as had his wife, as had his children. He said they had heard this urban legend about what Texas is like. They'd heard the mythology about Texas and Texans. But not until he got here, not until he lived here, did he see how different Texas really was. He said the difference between Texas and California, and Texas and any other place he's ever been, is one word. And that's freedom. He said in Texas you have a freedom that Californians cannot comprehend. And that freedom alone was worth far more than all the tangible benefits that he and his business and family were able to achieve by moving their business from California to Texas. I just want you to know that as your next governor, I will go to the office every single day fighting for that freedom and the free enterprise principles behind it, keeping Texas the very best state in the entire nation. Thank you. God bless you all. God bless everything you're doing for the great state of Texas.
And as a very small token of our appreciation for being here, we present you with a Pachyderm mug and a little something about what us Pachyderms are. So thank you.